This is RTV6 News at 7, working for you.
We begin with new developments in an alleged attack on a black man at Lake Monroe. Thanks for joining us at 7 o'clock. I'm Mark Mullins. Two white men accused of threatening to lynch a black man have been formally charged by the Monroe County Prosecutor. Vox Booker says a group of white men pinned him against a tree, shouted racial slurs, and threatened to lynch him on the 4th of July. Sean Purdy is now accused of criminal confinement, battery resulting in moderate bodily injury, and intimidation. Jerry Cox faces the same charges plus 2 additional counts of battery. Investigators with the State Department of Natural Resources also recommended charges against Vox Booker, but so far he has not been charged. An attorney representing Purdy had previously accused Booker of instigating the attack. Metro Police are looking for a car and its driver in a hit-and-run crash that left a pedestrian dead on the south side. This happened around 6:30 this morning on Sherman Drive and Candy Cane Drive. That's near Southport Road and McFarland Road. Officers tell us a pedestrian was hit by a red car that drove away and the man died at the scene. Police say that red car may have a missing mirror and other damage. If you think you've seen the car, you can leave an anonymous tip with Crime Stoppers at the number on your screen. It's 317-262-TIPS. Now to our continuing coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on Indiana. The State Health Department reports 8 more deaths and 747 new cases. 2,610 Hoosiers have now died from coronavirus. More than 54,000 Hoosiers have tested positive for the virus, and more than 604,000 people have been tested in Indiana, with a 9.1% of them testing positive. We've spoken with countless people over the last 5 months impacted by coronavirus, but despite all of these stories, there are still some who want to do their own research to see if this is a virus as serious as those in the medical community say it is. RTV6's Cornelius Hawker shows you one tool to help you do that.
This is the Rican COVID-19 dashboard.
The reason we created it is because at the beginning of this pandemic, many people wanted to know information about, where the virus was happening in the state and how many people were hospitalized.
That's Dr. Brian Dixon. Through his work with Regan Street Institute and Fairbanks School of Public Health at IUPUI, he and his colleagues realized they had access to all sorts of information the public was asking about.
Now let's look at age and race and sex, and because people want to know about, who's getting this virus.
The COVID-19 dashboard has a breakdown for every demographic Brian just mentioned. You can see how many tests have been given in the state, and of those, how many were positive, the testing being done by each county, and how those positive tests break down by race along with age and sex. This information is updated every 24 hours.
That's why we created the dashboard, was to take information that was coming in electronically in the state and being able to rapidly make it available so that people could track the disease.
Another useful tool on the dashboard shows trends in the state. All this red right here means positive tests are increasing, along with emergency department visits, people being admitted to the hospital and ICU, along with deaths. Brian tells me that data speaks for itself, and he hopes Hoosiers decide to do something very simple, wear a mask, to help turn those trends around.
The mask is there to protect you in case you have it from giving it to other people. But when both people are using the mask, it can essentially reduce the risk of transmission to almost zero.
Working for you, Cornelius Hawker, RTV6.
Dr. Dixon also says wearing a mask and social distancing can greatly reduce your chance of getting the virus. You can find a link to the Regent Street Institute's COVID-19 dashboard in this story at theindychannel.com. More cancellations because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fields across the state will not be filled with music this fall. The Indiana State School Music Association says it has canceled its marching band competitions for the year. That includes regionals, semi-state, and state finals held at Lucas Oil Stadium every November. Indianapolis is also home to the Bands of America Grand Nationals, which brings in more than 100 marching bands from across the country each fall. Their parent company, Music for All, has not announced a final decision on that event. The state's biggest marathon is also a casualty of the coronavirus pandemic. Today, Beyond Monumental announced that it would not hold an in-person monumental marathon this November. The organization says it felt a deep responsibility to keep everyone involved as safe and healthy as possible. The Monumental will instead hold a virtual race this year. If you're registered for the race, you could either compete virtually or defer your registration to the 2021 Monumental Marathon.
It got pretty toasty out there this afternoon, but most of us stayed out of the 90s. Bedford made it to 92. Right now it's 86 degrees in Indianapolis, Columbus, 88 still in the Lafayette area. And look off to the south and especially the west. Valentine, Nebraska is over 100 degrees for the air temperature. All this heat is building and it is going to be shifting our way for the weekend. All that orange heat advisory is in effect. And we do have a heat advisory for northern portions of the state going through Saturday afternoon. Heat index around 100 degrees, and that's going to be the case area-wide. High pressure in control of our weather right now, though. That keeps our forecast nice and quiet this evening with those temperatures into the upper 70s by 11.
Indianapolis's homicide rate is already on track to outpace last year, and that is something many of the city's grassroots community leaders are not okay with. RTV6's Cameron Riddle takes us to Hawville, where organizers, clergy, police, and the mayor marched through the streets asking for peace.
Stop the violence! Stop the violence! On the west side of Indianapolis, there was a call to stop the violence and bring peace to the streets.
We are specifically here in Hallville because we have seen an unfortunate uptick of crime that has happened here. But more than anything, this is my home. This is my stomping ground. This is where I'm from. So I need to make sure that home is taken care of first. Aaron Williams is the director of Peace in the Streets. Throughout this week, he's been asking for exactly that, in addition to a meeting with Indy's mayor and police chief to talk about creating neighborhood violence-free zones in hotspot crime areas. Hogville is one of them. Tonight, with a bullhorn in hand, Williams is asking the community to join that fight. The police can't do it alone. The community can't do it alone. The business community can't do it alone. The clergy can't do it alone. It is a collective effort of everyone working together and saying the same message consistently. We want peace in our streets. We want the violence to end. We don't want you to use violence as a means to settle a dispute, and we want to eliminate the unnecessary homicides and murders that are happening in our city at an unprecedented rate. As usual, Reverend Charles Harrison is vocal about Indy's rising crime rate, especially in the East Side neighborhoods patrolled by the 10-Point Coalition. Tonight, he's out of his usual patrol area to echo the message of peace needed in multiple parts of the city.
It's a citywide problem, and that's why, we all need to come together and help. There is no one silver bullet to this. There is no one program, one initiative that can curb the pattern of violence alone.
We will solve this problem. Right. We will bring peace to our streets. Right. And we will end the gun violence.
The call for peace is so loud, and the call for action is so urgent, it brought out Indianapolis mayors past and present.
I think it's evidence that this is a critical time for our city in its history, and we need to come together and encourage everyone to participate. Not just the mayor, not just IMPD, but the community as a whole. And I'm glad to see so many community members here.
In Indianapolis, Cameron Riddle, RTV6.
These public safety peace marches will continue for the next several weeks, with the next two happening at East 34th Street in Keystone next Friday, and then at 29th Street and Dr. Martin Luther King Streets the following Friday. President Trump facing major credibility problems stemming from the way he's handling the pandemic. Can he turn it around? The latest coming up here on RTV6 News at 7.
This is RTV6 News at 7, working for you.
President Trump is now facing increased pressure and scrutiny over his administration's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. A new ABC News Washington Post poll shows 60% of Americans disapprove of the president's response. Even members of his own party are speaking out. This while the White House continues to ramp up its push to reopen schools. ABC's Andrew Dimebert is in Washington with the story tonight.
Coronavirus cases are rising fast, and President Trump's support in his handling of the crisis is in steep decline. A new ABC News Washington Post poll finds 6 in 10 Americans disapprove of his handling of the pandemic, and just 34% trust what the president says about the crisis. Even some Republicans sharing those sentiments.
Well, and there's no secret, I think, that there are other Republican elected officials, both governors and senators and congressmen, who have some frustrations.
President Trump, meanwhile, says something big is in the works, but won't elaborate.
We have many exciting things that we'll be announcing over the next 8 weeks, I would say. Things that nobody has even contemplated, thought about, thought possible.
He hasn't spoken about the coronavirus for some time, so it's unclear if he's referring to that. This as the realities of the virus are growing more stark by the day. The United States has become the worst affected country in the world, with more than 3.5 million diagnosed cases and more than 138,000 deaths. Still, the debate to reopen schools rages on, with the White House shrugging aside the best recommendations of public health experts.
Yeah, the president has said unmistakably that he wants schools to open, and the science should not stand in the way of this.
When asked about the safety of schools opening their doors during a pandemic, Dr. Anthony Fauci says,
within the framework of safety, but the best we possibly can, to have our default position to get the children back to school.
For many school districts around the country, the academic year starts as early as August, and many are turning to the Centers for Disease Control for updated safety guidelines. But the agency says it won't be announcing those guidelines until the end of July. Dr. Fauci also warns the country may need to take more measures to slow the spread.
We really do need to take a look at what's going on and see if we can intensify the things we do to prevent the resurgences that we're seeing.
Meanwhile, congressional lawmakers are at odds over another potential coronavirus stimulus package. Key jobless benefits run out at the end of the month, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's drafting legislation that could be ready next week with a reported price tag of $1 trillion. But House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says it's not enough. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, Washington.
The Confederate flag will no longer fly over U.S. military bases. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper issued a new Defense Department policy today. It points out the importance of, quote, rejecting divisive symbols. The policy doesn't specifically mention the Confederate battle flag, but there is a list of flags allowed to fly, and the Confederate flag is not on it. A new policy comes as the debate continues over removing Confederate symbols nationwide. Thousands of Hoosiers continue to feel the impact of the coronavirus. Coming up here, the story of a firefighter, his battle back from the virus, and how it affected his family.
And we've had pockets of rain over the last week, and now we've got pockets of moderate drought developing in central Indiana. I'll let you know when we can expect some widespread rainfall to help us out. You're watching RTV6 News at 7.
First responders are on duty. They can't stay at home, so that means they face a risk of COVID-19. Our Alyssa Donovan takes us on the road to recovery for one first responder.
Due to their interaction with the public, first responders are more vulnerable when it comes to catching COVID-19. And we spoke with one firefighter who's recently recovered from catching the virus.
Back in March, Deputy Chief Mark Google woke up early one morning with a headache and a fever. He got tested for COVID-19 and it came back positive. His wife Jennifer also caught the virus. Google eventually was hospitalized after catching pneumonia. He's one of 2 Carmel firefighters hospitalized for COVID-19. There have been 17 cases total within the department. 10 of those who came back positive for the virus showed no symptoms at all, which is why fire crews say it's important they are getting tested weekly. However, Google says his symptoms were very prominent.
In that first week, it was like the worst cold or flu that I've had ever. It was just, my bones ached. I had a fever. I would fall asleep with just chills and covered with blankets and wake up in a puddle of sweat. And that just went, and then I'd feel better. The next day I'd feel better, and then the day after that I got worse. So it just kind of came back worse every time. All the typical, lost my sense of taste and smell and all that stuff that you hear, that's all true.
He's since recovered and is back at work. But as someone who experienced the virus firsthand, he wants everyone to take it seriously, especially when it comes to the efforts of wearing a mask. I'm Alyssa Donovan, RTV6.
Yesterday we had those clouds that were pretty pesky and hanging around for much of the day. That has not been the case though for our Friday. Lots of blue sky, a little bit of hazy sunshine out there and a few clouds. We'll see a few more of those tomorrow, but temperatures have been warming up this afternoon into this evening. We're still sitting well into the 80s, 87 in Bloomington and Muncie, 86 in downtown Indianapolis. And that wind now, it's fairly light, but it is out of the south and southwest direction, which is just going to bring in more of that humidity for the upcoming weekend. And we're also going to notice those overnights getting a little more on the muggy side. 69 degrees for the overnight temperature, mostly clear skies, so it will be nice viewing weather if you want to go out there a little before 11:30 tonight and try and see the comet flying through the sky. We'll have temperatures on Saturday that warm quickly here. We're already at 80 degrees at 10 a.m. Mix of sun and clouds as we go throughout the day, and temperatures that will make their way into the lower 90s. Again, I think it will be fairly widespread heat and humidity here as we go into our Saturday afternoon. 92 Bloomington, Indianapolis, Muncie at 91, 91 for you in Peru, and that rain chance for the heat of the afternoon thunderstorm only about 20%. So most of us will continue to be dry as we go throughout Saturday with that heat index by 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the lower 90s. And then as we progress on through the day, we'll see that heat index value approaching 100. So if you are going to be outside, make sure you take some breaks, get in somewhere cooler, and certainly keep yourself hydrated with plenty of water out there. It actually gets even hotter on Sunday. Those temperatures already in the lower 80s at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then with partly sunny skies, we'll see that temperature getting to around 94. And the heat index value, of course, with a higher temperature, will be running a little bit hotter as we go into our Sunday. Here we go. By noon, we're already feeling like it's in the middle 90s, and we'll have heat index values around 105 Sunday afternoon. Wouldn't be surprised if we end up with a heat advisory all across the state. One thing that will help cool us down temporarily, chance for some showers and thunderstorms Sunday afternoon into the evening. They should be weakening, though, as they progress toward the southeast. This is a look at TrueCast as we get between about 5 and 6 o'clock Sunday evening. Could have some gusty winds with a few of those storms, and then a couple of showers left over here as we go into our Sunday night. 7-day planning forecast, though, shows that the rain chances do ramp up here as we go into next week. A high temperature of 90 on Monday with that 40% chance of rain. I think the rain is most widespread going into our Tuesday and Wednesday. That helps us out with those temperatures. Highs in the middle 80s, but the humidity is going to stay high, so I think we could have some heavy downpours in that and temperatures that will hover around 90 degrees into the end of next week. Stay with us. There's much more on the news at 7.
T-Mobile is taking on robocalls. The company's latest endeavor is called Scam Shield. This product gives its customers a slew of protections from scammers. Unwanted calls and robocalls cost Americans billions of dollars per year and are the top complaint given to the FCC. Scam Shield will be free for T-Mobile, Metro by T-Mobile, and Sprint customers. It's scheduled to be available August 2nd. KFC launches a new meal vegetarians might like. The chain has a plant-based version of its fried chicken. This meat-free product is produced by Beyond Meat and was tested in Atlanta for 1 day last year. The faux chicken will now be tested in a few dozen areas out west. Officials with KFC will analyze the test results and will then determine if the plant-based food will eventually be available nationally. If your foot sizes don't match, you can now buy a pair of shoes in 2 different sizes on Zappos.com. It's also a help for people with prosthetics. The online retailer says there's a growing demand for single shoes in mixed sizes. Zappos will offer the option to buy the single shoe or a mixed size pair from 6 brands during its initial test period. They will be available starting Tuesday in all sizes and widths from toddler to adult. Zappos, by the way, is owned by Amazon. Apple is previewing its new emojis, these including a ninja, a boomerang, a piñata, and bubble tea. Also part of this latest edition is a set of lungs and a heart. And of course, there's the pinched fingers, which has been nicknamed the Italian hand. The latest emoji list, approved by Unicode, was announced in January. But each platform vendor creates its own designs. That likely means a blanket release of these emojis for iOS users will be in September or October. Tonight, putting some special high school student athletes in the spotlight on the RTV6 Facebook page. Graduating seniors will be honored at the National Football Foundation Central Indiana Chapter Annual Scholastic Awards. Sports Director Dave Furst hosts as 15 student athletes from 14 area schools are selected. Included are special Collegiate and Courage Awards. Watch tonight in just a couple of minutes at 7:30, only on our RTV6 Facebook page.
All right, we've got a couple of 90-degree days lined up here, especially as we go through the weekend. And then it looks like as those rain chances increase next week, Mark, the temperature does come back down a little bit.
And we want to thank you for joining us here on RTV6 News at 7. Kyle and I back with you tonight at 11. Have a great evening.